So this is leadership development training, and specifically the focus here is on extending your reach in terms of how you're influencing your team, influencing those that you're serving. Now, as you'll notice at the bottom, we are on LinkedIn, and you'll also notice the hashtag at the bottom. This is the hashtag that we'll be using to share anything on social media platforms, and you're welcome to use this hashtag. We'll be posting some information about this webinar training after the seminar is over with, and you're welcome to ask further questions if you have them. So before we move forward, please turn off all your cell phones. Please close down any other windows. The reason that you're seeing a car in front of you is I like to use the analogy with focus, where you know how when you go to buy a car, and as soon as you start shopping around, you see a couple of cars that you like, you find one in particular, and you begin narrowing your focus on that. Well, what begins to happen as a direct result is you begin seeing the vehicle everywhere you go, right? And so that's kind of our hope for the principles that are shared today. If we're really going to gain influence, we believe that you must do this by immersion, and so we're just encouraging you here to really be all here and all present. If you haven't shared the webinar, this is the best way to do it. There's a share button below. I want to go through just a couple quick things on what to expect. So first, just real brief, want to go through the story in terms of HCSI, and I'll share a little bit about myself. Talk a little bit about becoming a leader. Many of you are leaders, and so I want to unpack exactly what that transformation is like. Wouldn't you agree that it really is a process where it's a process of becoming? Well, for those of you that are here that are ready to take your leadership influence to the next level, we're going to go through this just a bit and then get into the influence leadership principles. Now, HCSI deals with compliance, and so we will be talking briefly about some Hipaa compliance audits. We felt like this would bring some added value to you, especially for those of you that are our customers or who have heard a lot about what's happening with the Hipaa compliance audits that have taken place this year. And we'll give you some insight into what you can do in your practice to make sure you're ready if you do get audited. Now, who am I? Well, my name's Lance King. I'm the Vice President of Sales. I have connected with many of you through LinkedIn, connected many of you because you're our customers, and we do appreciate the opportunity to serve you, to be your compliance partner. But in addition to being the Vice President of Sales, I am married with 3 daughters. And in addition to my time spent at soccer and gymnastics, I love recreation. In fact, just yesterday, my family and I went hiking, and we have a Jeep, and we like to take that up into the mountains and see what it can do. And my daughters don't think that's as fun as Dad does, but I'm a very recreational guy, and I love sports. Like racquetball is a huge sport. I recently did a triathlon, so I explore into those areas. In fact, if you've connected with me on LinkedIn, you'll know a little bit of my first experience with the triathlon, in all the humility that brought into my life preparing for that. Well, here is some contact information. If you have any questions after or during the webinar, you're welcome to reference that. So just real brief, who is HCSI? Well, here are some of the regulations we help practices with. In short, we like to say that we are a compliance partner. And really what that means, again, just briefly, we know that physicians and doctors are busy. And so we think that the best way to be compliant is to really incorporate a culture of compliance. Certainly continuous improvement is expected with HIPAA, OSHA, HR, and Medicare. So we work very close with practice administration, office managers, and sometimes it's just somebody in the front desk and somebody in the back office that we connect with to make sure they're compliance officers and make sure they have all the resources they need to make this as simple as possible, as simple as compliance can be, right? Now, one thing to note, we recognize we're not the most popular when considering all the priorities that pop up immediately on the priority totem pole. There we are at the bottom, and you know, I'll tell you, being somebody that has been involved with identity theft, having our identities stolen, the way that it's made us feel has been a huge motivator for me to help leaders learn how to do more with less, so that they can take a look at these priorities, understand how to really lead the organization, make sure these tasks get done, but understand really what their place is, and to ensure that things like compliance, which is, at least to me, you know, means keeping your employees safe and your patients' information safe. But we get that you've got a lot going on, and sometimes we're not exactly at the highest priority, and that's okay. So why are we here doing this presentation? It's a good question. This is kind of a funny comic that illustrates a concern that has been surfaced in a lot of discussions we've had with our customers about how grateful they'd be to have a little bit more direction within the scope of leadership, how to be a leader. Now, we're all leaders in many respects. Would you agree? Well, sometimes it can be a real challenge to know how to lead a team, how to increase your reach of influence so that people are motivated to do things, not just because you ask them, but because they understand the vision that has been cultivated over time. They respect you, and they want to do something because they feel that it really is for the betterment of other people, and because they want to do things because of who's asking. So let me just ask, what type of leader do you want to be? You know, is this a question that we think about often enough? I don't know. I don't know when the last time this was something that you had in mind, but hopefully this whole presentation will surface a little bit more awareness of what you want moving forward, and hopefully you can start a little bit more to that end today. Now, what is this thing? I call this this is the influence onion, and I think it's appropriately named because people, as I've mentioned briefly, they don't just follow you because they're asked. You know, their actions may look like they're following, but really they're only doing things because they want to get off the radar as fast as possible. And so real leaders will find people going above and beyond the call of duty because of how they support the leader's vision. And in order to have the leadership influence at this level, the thoughts and the behaviors of others, to be connected with the vision, you must connect with people's emotional center. Have you ever heard that before? Connecting with someone's emotional center? Again, as I've referenced, it takes time. It takes patience, respect, and it takes consistency. Okay, let's unpack this just a little bit. Okay, and the whole onion's peeled. In fact, we've cut this onion right in half so we can unpack each one of these. So first, many of us have relationships, whether they are family, close friends, acquaintances, or connections through social platforms, which we call, quote unquote, our friends, right? Now, in order to have influence, that involves engagement, where something has been initiated within the relationship that calls a person to think, speak, or act in some way, ultimately building a relationship. Now, this builds trust when engagement comes in, and it moves the person toward the emotional center, where they become influenced with their heart, their might, their mind, and their strength. Okay, it's everything. So as we move toward the center, repeated trust, it's developed when you engage in various activities. When viewed as and as this happens, you begin looking like somebody who's competent, who's credible, and a person will then start sharing problems that they have that allow you to critique their circumstances and make appropriate recommendations. The next layer of this is sentiments. People become more sentimental, where genuine sentiments are exchanged, and that's a direct result of the influence that's felt. And so this takes time and it takes consistency to get a person to where, when you are moving and you look back, you see that they're right there. They're right by your side. Now, casting the vision. So many of you have been in a leadership role for many years, right? Well, would you agree that your leadership has had its peaks and valleys? Please share your comments under the video or in the comment box. Okay. So one of my favorite quotes is, "I love it on the mountaintop, but it's in the valley where I grow." So for me, there's not a more appropriate saying, because we all have those times when we're up on the top and things are going well, but then something happens, something disrupts our pattern of how we're leading. And then we find ourselves in the valley where we're having to learn about the simple foundational steps of being a leader. And so let's get into identifying specific ways that, if you, wherever you're at, specific ways of increasing your leadership. Now, there have been many great leaders throughout history, many whom you may or may be well acquainted with your knowledge. And I think the more we know about their stories, the more clear picture we have of them, and the more influence and relevancy they have on our lives. So here are a few leaders that you know. I'm going to ask you to just write down some of the comments write down some of the first words that come to your mind that describe their leadership, as we go very quickly through some of these leaders. So Abraham Lincoln, U.S. President. Abraham Lincoln was an American politician and a lawyer who served as the 16th President of the United States. Was he influential? Is his influence being thought or felt? Well, it was by these men. Clara Barton, nurse. She went by Clara or Clarissa Barton. She was one of the pioneering nurses, and she was known for starting the American Red Cross. And here she can be seen with several people that truly were influenced. She was also a hospital nurse in the American Civil War. She was a great teacher and also a patent clerk. Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman was an American abolitionist. She was a humanitarian. She was an armed scout and a spy for the United States Army during the American Civil War. Martin Luther King Jr., a minister. Martin Luther King Jr. was an American Baptist minister, but he was much more than that. He was an activist who was a leader in the African American civil rights movement. And today, his influence, you don't have to flip through too many channels to see that he has made a huge mark in our history. John Wooden, basketball coach for UCLA. He was nicknamed the Wizard of Westwood and won 10 NCAA national championships in a 12-year period. Can you believe that? 10 in a 12-year period, including a record 7 that were in a row. Steve Jobs, entrepreneur. Steve Jobs, we know him as an IT entrepreneur and an inventor. Many of you may be watching this training from a device that came as a direct result of his influence, and definitely much more than the co-founder, chairman, and chief executive officer of Apple. This is Dave Ramsey, American businessman, author, radio host, television personality, and motivational speaker. A lot of people have heard about his Financial Peace University, and for small businesses, they've heard of EntreLeadership. Mark Zuckerberg, programmer, internet entrepreneur, executive, philanthropist, and he is the chairman, chief executive officer, and co-founder of Facebook. One thing I'll say about this in terms of influence, Facebook, if you compared the population on Facebook to all of the other populations in the world, he would be the president of the largest country. China, I believe, has 1.5 billion people, and Facebook has 1.6 billion. And then there's you. Okay, here we are. You look around in the office. There may be people that are being influenced at the moment, but this is kind of a discussion, a training about, again, the core principles of influence, so that you can have people surrounding you. And it starts with continuous education. It starts now. Success. It's been said that it's not due to a fortuitous concourse of stars at our birth, but due to a steady trail of sparks from the grindstones of hard work, determination, good planning, and perseverance. Couldn't agree more. So now we're going to get into the 5 main principles of leadership influence. Confidence, communication, character, the ability to inspire or someone who is inspirational, and somebody who is serving. These are the 5 main concepts that I want to talk about, which we believe, will help you to become extremely influential. And we're going to talk specifically, we'll do a couple of case study examples, and in hopes, once again, that we can expand your reach. So confidence. Why do we have confidence here? Well, we believe it's one of the most important attributes that a person can develop. When you believe in yourself, it's been said that anything that the mind of man can believe and conceive, it can achieve. Do you believe that? Well, when you do, when you believe in yourself and what you can accomplish, others will also believe in you. Nelson Mandela once said that when you let your light shine, you give others permission to let their light shine as well. What a gift. Just by being confident, getting out there, and doing what's right. Now, on the flip side, when you have doubt about yourself or question your abilities, those around you do likewise. That is how that is how influential confidence is. You'll lose your followers' respect and their confidence in you and your abilities. Now, is confidence something that you gain right away? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Starts with many decisions. It's been said that a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. I want to invite you, if there's if there's decisions that you're struggling to stand by, we've all been there. As leaders, we've been there. We know. Do your due diligence. Make decisions and stand by it. Okay. One of the most important attributes you can develop. Now, decisions are, of course, the heart of success. It's what you do, and you do it in critical moments when decisions can be very difficult, very perplexing, and very nerve-wracking. And usually, what's been discovered is the fear of making a wrong decision. It often causes this analysis of paralysis by analysis syndrome. And after I finished MBA school, I know that was something that I had very much so. I'd analyze things to death, and then it was really, it'd take a lot longer than it really needed to make a decision. We have to make a decision to gain traction. Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face." So wherever you see a successful business, someone that's doing really well, again, those historical influential characters we just looked at, just know it's these are people that have made some scary calls. Abraham Lincoln, with all that's taking place with civil rights and with the war, oh my goodness. So it's not the decision itself that scares people, but rather the potential consequences that the decision could bring about, right? And so being a courageous and a good leader, it means making a decision and owning up to it, owning up to the consequences of that decision. And if you fail, great, fail forward. I was listening to a podcast just a little while ago where this woman talked about how her father at the dinner table every night would ask about things that she failed at. Things that she failed at. Now you may say, why in the world? Why would you have that focus? Well, it was his philosophy that if she wasn't failing at something, then she wasn't doing enough to get outside of the box She wasn't creating enough. She wasn't moving forward. And so fail forward. Making tough decisions, it takes practice. It's when no decisions are made that a potentially good leader withers into a bad manager. Okay, that's scary. When making a decision, utilize the tools and resources available to you. Okay. Now, in doing all of this, you should do it with a positive attitude. I want to share a quick case study example just to talk about some decision making and relate it to positive attitude. So we'll call this woman Jill. She went back to her office. Here she is. And she's recently talked with her front office staff, and she's saying to herself now, okay, with discouragement and frustration, you can see it in her eyes. Her head's down. You can tell she's thinking about it. She's got her hands put on her forehead. I mean, look at the posture. Even the posture suggests that she's struggling. She's struggling. And so she says to herself, they're going to quit. I just know it. They're going to quit soon. I just know they will. Now, what had happened is she'd been talking with them about a Hipaa incident that occurred within the office, a Hipaa breach. Okay. And Jill and her front office staff complained about Hipaa together. When they were together, they said, man, this is such a dumb thing. I can't believe how easy it is to get a breach. And so they talked about how annoying the regulations were. Well, by the time the conversation ended, Jill and her front office staff were all worked up, and they were very much visibly annoyed. Now, let's just unpack what, we've all had situations like this. So Jill, if she would have approached her front office staff with a different approach, what would that have looked like as a leader to really have influence? Okay. So if she would have done that, if she would have approached the situation with a better attitude, it could have been a real teaching moment, right? Where people could have begun to see Hipaa regulations as something that helps with increasing communication between office staff, communication with the patients, improves the reputation of the building. I mean, there's just so many different ways of looking at this. And so she could have been more positive. She could have said something like, hey, team, we should care about protecting our patients' PHI just as much as we care about our patients' treatment. So we need to stand by these types of decisions. We need to stand by them beforehand. We need to plan for these types of tough events, tough circumstances. I mean, when you get the train moving, it's been said that trains, if you look at this as an analogy, it's been said that trains can, if you had a steel wall, that trains could go, I mean, once they've got enough momentum behind them, they can go right through that wall. And so plan when you go into these circumstances to have momentum. Start with a positive attitude. Decide beforehand that you're going to make a decision that can be an influential decision for your staff. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about positive attitude and negative attitude. Just a couple of things about positive. A couple more things about positive attitude. Again, it's vital that leaders have that they're optimistic, that they see opportunities and possibilities in everything that happens, positive or negative. Okay, having one of my favorite quotes is to make sure you're being a creator of circumstances and not a creature of circumstances. Okay, a creator and not a creature. So look for that with your people. Look for that in every situation. Fail forward. James Hume said the art of communication is the language of leadership. Okay, we're always communicating to our staff, whether it be written, whether it be oral, verbal. Effective communication is the cornerstone. And it's something that it has to happen consistently. Okay. Now, love this image, a girl talking to a dog. There was an episode years ago that I remember seeing of The Simpsons, where I think Homer was talking with a dog, and the dog was, or I guess the dog, all he'd hear was, want, want, as Homer was talking. I think I might be referencing a Charlie Brown, actually. That's right. I think it was a Charlie Brown episode. At any rate, it's critical that when you communicate, you do it in a way or ways that the information would be understood by the intended audience, okay, the people that you're talking to. So, for example, a leader will give instructions on how to accomplish something. They then must ask the person receiving the instruction to confirm their understanding. Now, that sounds very basic. And I think you can do it in a way that doesn't come across as condescending. That's something that again, you just have to understand who you're talking to, right? So it's a true leader, somebody that wants to have influence, who understands that communication it's two-way, it's active listening. That active listening is just as important as clearly speaking. The biggest communication problem is we don't listen to understand. We listen to reply, and boy, this is especially the case when you're meeting somebody for the first time, right? And so there's a big difference between hearing what somebody is saying and actively listening to what's being said. There was a little boy at school. The little boy was getting ready for recess, and he was so excited. And the teacher says to the group, "Okay, kids, remember it looks like it's raining outside, so remember to take your boots off before you come in. I don't want you tracking mud in, okay?" So the kids go out to recess. They have fun. The little boy has a lot of fun, and comes back into the classroom, sits down at his desk. The teacher comes up to little Johnny, says, "Little Johnny, hey, you forgot to take your shoes off. Look at the mud that you've tracked in. Weren't you listening when I told the class?" And Johnny looks up at the teacher with these big blue eyes and says, "Well, teacher, I was listening, but I just didn't hear you." Okay, there really is a difference, okay, between just listening, but kind of tuning out, looking around, and actually hearing what is being said. Would you agree that leaders who actively listen to their employees are able to create trustworthy relationships? Would you agree that they become more transparent? That they breed loyalty? I would agree with you. Active listening, it shows care. It's been said that a person doesn't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Shows engagement. Again, it's getting to that emotional center, right? That influence onion. Okay? Active listening shows a leader cares, is engaged with important matters, that they're able to show some empathy. It also helps to look at verbal and nonverbal signs And again, not interrupting is absolutely critical. Okay. So last thing I'll say is this is active listening will help you to better approach different employees in varying situations. And it'll be like the Matrix. Those of you who've seen the Matrix, when the bullets were flying at him, he arches back and has enough time. He's so fast, he allows the bullets to pass by him and is able to see everything that's going on. The more you focus on active listening, the more you'll pick up on what's being communicated in that situation. So a lot of what we've talked about is approach, is related to a person's approach and how you allow your influence to be felt, not only in the moment but thereafter. And I think it's important to know every employee is unique, and so how you approach them, well, wouldn't you agree it should also be unique? So, just as you'd never approach every situation you're faced with in the same way, you should always approach the employee based on who they are and what you're trying to help them become. Always have that in mind. And if you don't, something that I learned from Dave Ramsey, who's been a huge influence for me, he creates what are called KRAs with all of his staff. And they review these KRAs, or key result areas, throughout the year. And this is how he keeps them accountable. And so when the leadership staff talk with the people at that organization, they talk with them based on what they're having them become. Okay, when they make mistakes, again, it's failing forward or failing up into what you're wanting them to grow into. Okay. So through active listening, you're able to have a better understanding of how to communicate to different individuals. And that definitely helps you to understand how to teach, how to correct, and how to develop your employees. And one thing I'll say about your employees and how to correct. So there's a quote that says reproving, that when you reprove someone, you should do it with sharpness, and then afterwards show an increase of love. When we correct somebody, some people call it, the sandwich approach. You don't necessarily, I think, you don't necessarily have to say something nice, because people kind of expect, uh-oh, he's buttering me up so he can slam my head against the desk and then showing, some love afterward. That love becomes a little disingenuous in that case. But with reproof, find a way to do it with sharpness, and that's it. Sharpness. I think that means quickly. Reprove quickly when it's needed, and then in everything. Remember that you're on the same team, and it's important to remind them that, and remind them again within their sphere, to help them understand the influence they have in what they're doing. Okay, so reproving with sharpness or quickly, and making sure you're showing love afterwards. And by having a deeper understanding of each of your employees, how they communicate, how they learn, and their overall skill development, you're going to know exactly which approach to take, and also how to delegate what with each employee. I want to talk just briefly about delegation. Now, I really feel like with decision making, just to kind of go back to that, there's kind of a pecking order of how to make decisions effectively. There's really 4 things, and let me have you write these down. So the first thing when making a decision as a leader, I learned this from Rory Vaden. He has a book called Procrastinate on Purpose. It's important to first consider whether or not the task at hand or the decision at hand can be something that could be eliminated. It may not be something that you even need to do. So can it be eliminated? Next, Can it be automated? Can this be something that you can use, have technology or have a service help you out with? The next is delegation. You have a lot of competent people around you. A lot of people that want to grow. Yes, you can do things very well. In fact, this is one of the main challenges with delegation is people think, well, I could do this so much better and faster. Well, yes, you can. But again, people, we're talking about influence here. Okay. So the last part is to procrastinate. Okay, maybe the decision doesn't need to be done right away. But I will say with delegation, for a leader to truly be effective, they need to be focused on the overall direction of a team. Okay. And with that direction, when you try to do everything yourself, this it becomes an excessive hands-on approach, and it minimizes your time, your core competencies, your competitive advantage in that in the role that you're in, and weakens your ability to accomplish your assigned tasks and that of others. It also shows a lack of trust. So if you know your employees' skill sets and trust in their abilities, again, that key results area document that's used by Dave Ramsey. I know you can go onto you can type in Entree Leadership, Dave Ramsey, KRA, and it'll pull up. I think that'd be really instructive for you. But once you understand those, don't be afraid to assign them to important responsibilities. Delegating it builds their innovation, it builds their morale, and they become more satisfied and more connected with the job and with their career. Okay, you'll have lower turnover if you delegate, believe it or not. So it's crucial for you as a leader to show you can trust your employees, and it's this is a big part of your overall character. Abraham Lincoln said, "Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power." Character fundamentally shapes how we engage with the world around us. Would you agree with that? It's our character that defines who we are as a person and as a leader. Now, some aspects of our character are inherited, some are gained from family influences, some learned from role models, and others from our own life experiences, right? It is your own individual character, though, that will define you and separate you from other leaders. This is something I believe that is lacking tremendously. And I'll tell you, people who work with you, they'll always take note of your various character traits, of your integrity, of how you account for your own actions. John Quincy Adams said, "If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader." I want to go through another case study. Carol told one of her staff, Amy, to do a particular to begin a particular project. Although Carol, well, she didn't really see the value of the project, but she's following through on what she's been told to get done by her leaders. Now, the project was going to be quite time consuming and very tedious, but it needed to get done. Like Carol, Amy was less enthusiastic to do the project. Although Amy completed the project on time, it wasn't done very well, and there was quite a bit of mumbling and a lot of complaining throughout the entire project. This became a very heavy load for Carol. So why does that happen? Has that happened recently? where you've had a project that you could tell that your leaders didn't really care a whole lot about? Well, if Carol would have understood the importance of the project and had some enthusiasm about it, she might have been more motivated to talk with Amy. It's been said motivation, when you break that up, the motive for action, we must have it. We must understand our why. It's a big part of why this training is being done today. If you understand your why, if Carol would have understood her why, she would have presented in a very, very different way, and her emotion would have been transferred and influenced Amy. The ability to inspire is a great key to leadership success. We've all seen it. We know when we've inspired someone, and we can see it all over the face and body language of the person when we can tell they're not motivated or inspired. Or maybe I'm just talking from experience. So great leaders, they inspire other people, their friends, customers, associates, and if they have children, they better be inspiring their children, because those are the leaders of tomorrow. But they're excited about the possibility of creating an exciting future for themselves. They get up every morning and they see every effort they make as a part of, smaller steps to accomplishing something great. By small and simple things, great things come to pass. They push forward with a positive attitude. So this is a very important part of leadership, a very important fundamental key to being a great leader. And when a leader is inspired by vision, they generate that excitement. But as I mentioned, when it's not there, it really is contagious. Going back to Nelson Mandela's point about light, when we let our light shine, it gives others permission to do the same. And that is how great things get accomplished. Great things by passionate people that are excited to be moving forward because they understand that it's fulfilling a greater serving objective. John Wooden said, you must have love in your heart for the people under your leadership. Okay. Some people call love charity. Some people call it a serving attitude. A friend of mine calls his leadership small L leadership. Okay. He doesn't want to be viewed as being someone who is over anybody, but he's serving customers and patients with the people. Okay, going back to children, being a good leader is a basic variation of being a good parent. Qualities inherent in a good parent are character, consistency, dependability, accountability, knowledge, good judgment, selflessness, respect, courage, discipline, fairness, and structure. And these are some of the qualities inherent in a good leader. I want you to write down for me, what are some of the qualities that you expect in a good leader? Just jot down your top 3 real quick. Okay, go ahead and do it. Again, this is about immersion. You've got to be immersed in this process. Okay, well, some of these that you've just written down: humility, understanding, selflessness, courage. Okay? As leaders, you must have every one of these qualities. Every one of them. Okay? If this is what you expect of leaders that are serving you, this is what you've got to have for other people. You must care about the lives and the welfares of your team members, and it must be demonstrated with concern and support within a disciplined environment. In other words, it's critical to truly love those whom you lead. Okay, it must be a glue. It must be felt in how you're serving. And again, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So ask yourself, what type of leader do I want to be? You've written down all the expectations, or some of them, of great leaders. What type of leader do you want to be? How would you rate the effectiveness of your leadership today? How, if there was a room of 10 people, if you're in the room of 10 with 10 people, how many of those people would you say have been influenced by you? What have they done as a direct result of the influence? What are they doing as a direct result of that influence? Again, here are some people of the history, people in history. Martin Luther King Jr., John Wooden. Again, that's the same player that he was coaching and mentoring in the picture we saw before. Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg. Confidence, communication, character, inspiration, being inspirational, and serving. These are the 5 leadership attributes, the leadership qualities that we've talked about to have the ability to extend your reach of influence. Okay, my final thoughts on this before I move into wanted this presentation to be about an hour. And then for those of you that are interested in understanding a little bit more about what's happening with Hipaa audits and to learn a little bit more about compliance and of how you can do it in-house, that's what I'll talk about. But just some final thoughts. You're good. You have no idea how good you are, how influential you are. So I hope you know that regardless of how much you feel in the valley, people appreciate so much your leadership. Okay, what we're talking about is having leadership that's worth remarking over, that's worth modeling. That's all I'll say about that. I appreciate the time we've talked about leadership. I'm going to talk now specifically about compliance. And as the joke goes, again, we're the bottom of the totem pole in terms of leading out with compliance. Many see us at the bottom, but my hope is that you can learn how to do more with less, take that decision-making model where you're eliminating tasks that don't need to be done by you or by anybody. You're automating tasks, you're delegating tasks, or you're procrastinating tasks. And where we fall in compliance is actually after eliminate is automate. And that's really where we're at, is helping you to automate things. So hopefully we'll be moving up much faster on the totem pole within your office. After all, what's your time worth? There's so much going on in your day. We want to help automate this process. I mean, think about, when, we have washing machines and dryers these days. Can you imagine having to take all the time to hand wash each article of clothing? No. Think about paying your bills. Same thing. You've only got 168 hours in a week after all. And for those of you who are office managers, who are practice administrators, I mean, does this look familiar? You put 6 cups in front of you, you fill up the pitcher, it's everything that you can offer. You want it to be overflowing for the patients, and you want to give to your staff. You want to help with the front desk if you can, accounting if you can. You've got to have room for fun. Many cases, compliance is completely left out. Let me share audits. They're on the rise. A big part of that is because people are trying to get your information. They're trying to get patients' health information. My brother-in-law is a physical therapist. He told me a couple days ago he had somebody come to his hospital, and they walked into the front door and told reception that he had an appointment. He had a time right then to go back and look at the server to check on a few things. When they asked for identification, he was able to show he had a paper with signatures of people that were in fact people that worked at that hospital. Now, they checked the the credibility of the appointment, and they discovered that things were actually fraudulent. And from what I understand, the guy was arrested. And I'll tell you, if that individual would have gone into that server and extracted names, the unfortunate thing is, I was thinking, wow, my family's name could be in the mix there. I mean, you give hospitals so much information, and also with applications being on phones and tablets, the way things are being communicated these days, it's becoming easier and easier to hack into things. If you're using Gmail, for example, or Yahoo, and you're exchanging patient information back and forth, hey, I'll tell you what, that's information that's probably being leaked out onto the internet as we speak. So Hipaa audits, they're increasing. This year, OCR, the Office of Civil Rights, they are increasing in what they're doing to make sure that there's some awareness out there to do the things that you need to. Now, you may say, well, everything's organized. We've got binders somewhere with things for Hipaa and OSHA and everything else, and we understand that. But in all reality, this may be what things look like. I love this. Oh, that's the time-saving system we came up with. If we ever forget our username or password, we just look up on one of the sticky notes. Does that look familiar? I hope not. So here's just a quick diagram that can kind of illustrate where these breaches are coming from. Not too long ago, we had an anesthesiologist that took a laptop home, and this laptop, well, it was brought into his house, but then somebody broke into his house, and the laptop was one of the things that they took. And so laptops in cars, we hear that all the time. Paper records, if you're still using paper records, and then portable electronic devices. I think desktop computers are pretty much a given. But these are areas that information is being breached. Okay, so physical theft, definitely the biggest reason that there are Hipaa violations. But then right there with physical theft is record snooping, or in other words, unauthorized access to information. Physical loss, again, that goes back to the paper records. Now, what happens if you do get an audit? Hopefully this can be instructive for you. Okay, it could take 90 days, it could take even longer. Okay, but what happens on day one is you get mailed a notification that says, hey, you're going to be audited. Then they ask for some specific documentation. Usually that'll be emailed, or they just ask you to get it ready. And then they have the on-site field work, and that can take, again, up to 30 days depending on what they have to give. Now, why do I say it like that? Well, if you're a dentist office, for example, and you have those silver fillings, for example, I know in Ohio and Michigan right now, there is a governmental department, the health sector that's actually going in and they're doing audits to identify which protocols are in place for waste management of those fillings. Okay, and so if, for example, you get audited by a governmental body, and then that stirs up other regulatory bodies. I mean, there could be more documentation that needs to be gathered. But I'll tell you, the more digging that they have to give, when they do that audit report, your corrective actions list is going to be pretty long, and and you bet they're going to tack some fines on. So here's what the fines look like. Now, with the did not know what to do, HIPAA, there's more and more that's being put out there. I mean, to really play the dumb card, it's just not going to work as much. For example, if the office isn't found in non-compliance, but the administrator and compliance officer made an attempt, but just didn't know what to do correctly, that's one example of how the fees could go from $100 to $500 or $50,000 per violation. Another example, just to illustrate how this is applicable, the office is found to be in a state of non-compliance with HIPAA, and then that attitude is just, hey, I don't really care about this stuff. I've got enough to do, or I'll never get audited, so why should I be doing this? That's really when the fines get $50,000 per violation. And they add up quickly. It's quite common to see fines and settlements total over $1 million. And we've seen several practices. Again, we've been doing this over 30 years. We started out just helping with policy binders, policy manuals. But as we've progressed, we've seen audits and fines progress, and many businesses have had to shut down. This is a real deal, people. Person. I'm not trying to be condescending when I say that. Okay, so risk management. So what could you do? Okay, in-house, what can you do? So these are the 5 main things that OCR is going to look at. They're going to look at your policies and procedures. Are they customized to your practice? Are they location and practice specific? Okay, you should have a binder for every location. Okay, unless it's a satellite location. In that case, you can probably duplicate nearly everything. Documentation, when I say documentation, a lot of that has to do with the ongoing forms, which there's, if you do HIPAA, OSHA, and Medicare combined, well, there's about 100 forms there that you're going to have to keep track of. You're going to have to make sure they're customized, and you're going to have to make sure that they are updated throughout the year. Okay, are your staff being trained? Okay, is it just a quick meet and greet and, hey, we need to do HIPAA, don't show people your screens? Or is it a formal training? Are your compliance officers, do they have continuous improvement and training on their duties, which there are many? And part of those duties are all the forms that they're supposed to be updating, and procedures they're supposed to be changing as a result of changes in the regulations. Business agreements, business associate agreements and contracts, an annual risk analysis and the management of that. Okay, what kind of safeguards and protocols are being initiated as a result of, taking a look at the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats in your facility, with your IT, with the environment. These are some of the main things with this. So this is what a healthy risk management program looks like. Okay, it is a lot of work, but again, you can find a lot of ways to do this in-house, and I can make some more recommendations to help you out in a minute. So consultants. Talked with a guy, an optometrist, just a couple of days ago, and this optometrist said that he was having a guy come into the office to do a risk assessment. He's going to do a risk analysis to make sure that meaningful use was current, and to make sure he was meeting HIPAA standards. How much were they going to charge? Well, they were going to charge him $750 to do that. Okay. A lot of times consultants can be very expensive. Now that was just that one piece of the pie. I showed you 5 pieces for just, going back to this. Here are 5 pieces just for your risk management program for Hipaa. And then you've got OSHA and you've got Medicare. You've got these other regulations that you have to take care of if your office bills and has equipment, etc. Consultants can be $1,200 a day. Okay, so it can cost you thousands. You could be left with a bill of $10,000 just to be just to be completely compliant with all the standards. You can do this in-house. Okay, you can piecemeal things over time. Just make sure you're organized. And there's lots of ways of being organized. The number one problem we're finding is that oftentimes there's an administrator that will be doing it for a little while, but then they'll put things on the shelf. They'll forget over time, or they'll delegate it to someone else, not teaching them their duties because they were never taught the duties. But there's a lot of information out there. We have a LinkedIn group. It's a private group for administrators where we teach a lot about how to do things in-house, things to be aware of. Okay, connect with me after this if you'd like the link. Maybe you're already part of our LinkedIn group. If you don't have LinkedIn, it's great to get on there. Lots of leaders that can help grow your influence. Online, this is a great way to automate things. Again, you've only got 168 hours in a week. Why not look at this as an option? Only problem I would say with online is, well, certainly you've got to be connected to the internet. If you're still using fax machines for everything, and are used to just meeting one-on-one, well, hey, incorporate those things. Take what you have and see if there's more. See if there's a faster way to do things, a more instructive way to do things, a more simple way to take something complicated and make it fit within your culture. So again, the consultant can be up to $1,200 a day. Some people like that in-person feel. Okay, that's definitely something that can be helpful. I will say though, one of the problems with this, it's not just price, it's dependency. Do you have someone that's in the office at all times, communicating what's required, helping people to stay accountable, making sure the forms are being filled out? If not, then, well, you'll have someone else that they don't really know your practice, and when they come around, people kind of stiffen up a little bit because they feel like they're invading their space. So let me just say, I'm talking from a customer's perspective. This is what has been voiced many times. So just some things to be aware of, but it is a route where you can have them do everything for you, and then they kind of become part of the staff. So security risk analysis, $750 to have someone come in and go through it. Well, this is something that you can do. You can find a risk analysis. Oftentimes, you can, well, reach out to us and we can probably help you in this area. That's usually the first place to start when you do it in-house. If you use somebody like HCSI, here are our 4 main pillars. We have an online portal, we have courses, we have an audit manual, and we have ongoing support. Okay. Within our online portal, we have the compliance education courses. We have the ability to track all your staff. There's a reference guide in there for continued education for the compliance officer, all your customized forms. So there's about 100 in there, and all the posters are in there. In terms of courses, HIPAA privacy, HIPAA security, breach notification, OSHA, Medicare, and employment law. We provide all the binders, policies and procedures, training certificates, a business associate agreement, agreements, which have actually recently been updated, risk assessments, and forms. Everything that an auditor would need is going to be in that pillar right there. So if anything, make sure you've got your manual and everything all updated. As far as compliance support is concerned, we have compliance specialists who provide support throughout the year, specifically quarterly support. We send out weekly, monthly, and quarterly newsletters. We do mail a quarterly newsletter. And then we're on Facebook. We have that LinkedIn forum, as I mentioned. Okay, so as you can see, there's quite a bit here that's required of a practice. And this is really what we do to make things simple. In fact, let's make it even more simple. As compliance begins to grow through the cracks and starts peeking its head and becomes something that you just can't ignore anymore, just know that HCSI, we have a membership website portal, compliance binders, and ongoing support. Okay, those are the three main things that you need to think about, that we hope you think about when you think of healthcare compliance solutions. So furthermore, with the training, again, it's all online. I wanted just to point out that everybody has their own login and password, and that employees are tested. They receive certificates at the end that go in the binder. Okay, the training modules, this is exactly, this is exactly what it looks like. When you go through them, you have to click things that keep you accountable to the information that you've been taught. And then there's retraining. Every year there is retraining, okay? All the manuals. Again, we provide the manuals, which will contain everything needed for an auditor. And if an auditor comes to your office and they see that you have a binder with a bunch of tabs, uniformly organized, are they really going to take that much time to dig that much deeper? They're probably not. They're going to go to somebody that's a little bit more disorganized. It'll be easier for them to see the corrective action needed. We've talked a little bit about the support. We've talked about the forms. A couple of testimonials. This is from a dentist. He says, quote, "Our Hipaa OSHA compliance was a huge concern in our office, especially after one of our employees filed a complaint with OSHA. We started using HCSI 4 years ago, and we couldn't be happier at the program. It's simple to set up and easier to use. Do yourselves a favor and sign up. It will make your life easier." We sure appreciate that testimonial. I just wanted to emphasize that in most cases, the reason HIPAA's knocking on your door is because you've had a disgruntled ex-employee or a disgruntled patient for Hipaa or OSHA. The most recent story I've heard was that there were a bunch of cords that were kind of tangled underneath the desk where this girl worked. She kept complaining about it, but nothing was being done. Well, when she was fired, she complained to OSHA, let them know that, hey, these guys aren't keeping your standards. I didn't feel safe there. You guys should check them out. Well, I'll tell you, this kind of thing will really rock the boat, especially with your reputation. This person was audited. HCSI kept my fanny out of the who's cow with a cranky patient who thought we had been naughty in multiple ways. Our association with you all made the difference. We passed the inspection with flying colors, and OCR told the patient to bug off. Loved it. And that's what'll happen. If you have all the binders and everything, you're going to be good. Well, I'll tell you right now, we have a 30-day money-back guarantee if you decide that this is something that you want to explore. You want to get started with getting your compliance officers trained, start with the risk assessment, get your compliance binders in order, get everything in order. You'll be amazed. You will be amazed how simple this is, and to have the monkey off your back, in essence, the compliance monkey. Imagine, again, this is part of your character. People know if this is or isn't being done. Yes, you've got a lot going on. You can automate this process. Here's the price breakdown. You're probably wondering, well, how much does this cost? The compliance officer training, yes, we are one of the only programs that actually focus on the compliance officers, their duties, and making sure that it's not just here is everything that you need and good luck, but we really handhold. We make sure that if you have a front desk girl and someone that's in the back office, and you're concerned a little bit that it's going to be a big load for them, well, hey, we unpack things little bit by little bit. We make sure that everything that you need at the very beginning with your training and your binders, initial forms is taken care of, and then we really help coach them through. We try to be a compliance partner. Okay. Next is the employee training, a $500 value. It was a $750 value, but we're saying $250 for a risk analysis. $1,250 value for the customized compliance plans that are location and practice specific. Again, that's an automated process that you'll do at the very beginning when you're with us. Customizable forms, $100. Posters, $100. Compliance updates, email and newsletters, $50. I would actually raise that personally, because we have some people that have been with us for 7 years, and they've literally told us that was the main reason that they had stayed with us, was the newsletters and the updates. And so that's a valuable thing right there. And then lastly, the phone and the email support at a $500 value. So the total value, I mean, I think it's a little bit more, but we're saying about a $3,500 value for the first year. And this is important for everything that I've mentioned: training your compliance officers on their duties. They'll then do the risk assessment. They'll customize your compliance policies and procedures. They'll have all the forms they'll begin customizing. Again, the binders, the second part of this is the binders we'll send to you, so you can put the certificates in there, the policies and the procedures and everything in case you're audited. And then third, this ongoing support. We're willing to do this to you today for $11.89, okay, plus $3 per employee. So if you have, if you have 20 employees, well, you're going to pay what, $60. So just know that this is an amazing deal. If you're looking at $1,200 a day with a consultant, go to hcsiinc.com to get everything for $11.89. That optometrist, he actually just signed up today, and we sure appreciate that. And he realized that while that one guy wanted to do a risk assessment for $750, he could get everything for just maybe $500 more is all. So go to hcsiinc.com if this is something that you feel could be a good fit for you. Now, something else I want to say about this, we're gonna help you out. This goes till Friday, okay, September 30th, the end of the month. This is a special we'll do because you've watched this training. The early bird discount, right? The early bird gets the worm, and we're going to give you a discount in just a minute. I'm going to give you my email address, and all you have to do is email me at lking@hcsiinc.com, or give us a call at 801-947-0183, and that information will be on in a couple of slides, and we'll give you $300 off. So where it was $11.89, we'll take it down to $300 from here. Okay. Now, we like to reward individuals that act fast. We think that individuals should be rewarded because the faster you begin moving forward on this, the better results you're going to get. This it's just the way it is. And so we're going to reward you within the next 15 minutes. Okay. Mountain time, it's about 2:30. Pacific time, it's 1:30. And then Central, it's 3:30, and then 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. We'll give you 15 minutes, okay? In 15 minutes, if you sign up, we're going to send you, we have a part of this that is an online risk assessment, but we have a risk assessment document. It's a 3-page document that I'll tell you, it's probably the same document that optometrist was going to go through with that consultant. We'll go ahead and throw that in, as well as a $500 value with a quarterly phone assessment. So this is probably the biggest thing. We'll make sure that each quarter we call you every quarter. And what we'll do is we'll have one of our compliance specialists assess your account and do a quick SWOT analysis. Are you familiar with that term? Well, SWOT analysis is, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's to identify with the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats of your compliance. And we can do that pretty easy by quickly seeing who has and hasn't done training. But then furthermore, with changes happening throughout the year, we'll be able to make specific recommendations to help your practice. Now, yes, you can call us. You can call phone and email support throughout the year. But this way, if, say, you're talking to you're having a compliance specialist, you're having a compliance officer in your office. So the front desk girl is one of your compliance officers, and you're a little nervous at the beginning, a little nervous that he or she is just not going to pick it up, not going to pick up the ball and run with it the way that they need to. Well, this type of coaching, again, can help unpack things where we're able to help that individual to be accountable. Where they've got a million things going on, we'll make the call every quarter to make sure that this individual is getting the hand holding or whatever is needed to help ensure they're communicating a culture of compliance. So again, these two things, 15 minutes left, and again, that'll be $2:45 our time to purchase, and you'll get that $300 off, and you'll get the risk analysis form and the quarterly phone assessment. Okay, and let me give you. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, but let me give you my information real quick. It's lking@hcsiinc.com, or feel free to email support. If our customers are still watching this and they're watching this just because they wanted to recommend this to other customers, well, thank you very much. And if you have any support questions, you can go to support@hcsiinc.com. So hurry up and write that down. I'm going to go to these other slides. And again, you'll have 15 minutes, okay, to get the offer that we're extending to you today for being a part of our training on business leadership, extending your reach of influence. So just going back to these customized policies and the procedures, I've gone into offices. I see what things look like. I'm amazed sometimes, as you probably are, when you'll see things that you don't even think should be in the cubby, but they are. When I've asked for compliance plans to look at the binders and the information, many people have said, "Hey, most of my information is put in a cubby, and things just aren't very organized." So again, this is one of the main things. If an auditor was to come to you and say, "Hey, I need to see your compliance policies and your procedures," then well, you're going to have a binder that's going to contain everything the auditor needs. In addition, you'll have, if you have any questions at all, you'll have that compliance specialist that's been working with your compliance officer, helping to coach and prepare that individual to speak face-to-face with a compliance auditor. Compliance auditors, if you've been audited, auditors try to throw their weight around, right? So rather than feeling the inadequacies of not really understanding what's being asked, there's a lot of jargon that they use. This is part of what these quarterly calls will do, is, again, not only assessing your account, but making sure we're coaching you on what to communicate, which forms to make sure you're implementing. There there are lots of support features that take place as a direct result. You'll have one compliance specialist that you can communicate with, and he or she will do a great job. Again, here's my information, and I'm going to leave that information with you and just say thank you very much for coming onto the call. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call or send us an email. Happy to talk to you a little bit more and unpack a little bit more of what we can do to help you incorporate a culture of compliance, and most importantly, to help you extend the influence, the reach that you have with your team, with the people that you're surrounded with for months and for years to come. Thanks so much. Again, my name is Lance King. This is a presentation from Healthcare Compliance Solutions, and I hope you have I hope you make it continue to make it a great day.